Thank you for hitting play on your media device. We will now grace you with another episode of This Week in Mormons. My name is Jeff. I'm joined by my co-host Al.
Hello, my name is Alan. Happy to join
Alan.
you today, Jeff.
Hi. Al comes to us from Germany.
Yeah, let me describe where I'm sitting
Land of
right
my
now.
forefathers.
First, I got to apologize because this is going to be my audio is going to be echoey. I'm in a probably 12-foot tall by 8-foot plywood box in here. Nothing on any of the walls. It's going to be, and when it's dark, it's a very echoey situation we have.
So we're violating best practices in recording. But
absolutely. I mean, if I don't sound echoey, it's completely because of your skills as a post-audio worker here, Jeff.
I'm a wizard. But you know what? The greater good is what trumps this, right? What's more important is for us to be able to join you all, and that you can hear our sonorous voices.
And you may be hearing people in the little room next to me. That might be happening.
Are they speaking in tongues?
I'm in the equivalent of a closet. No, they're speaking in German, which, man, I love Germany. But I get so comfortable anytime in Europe, like sort of quasi-mocking the German accent. And just everything I say is in a funny, fake German accent. Until you're in Germany, and then they just stare at you and say, "Why are you trying to make fun of my accent?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm very sorry. I didn't realize I was doing that."
Do you remember last year when I was in Hamburg and our boat captain looked like the fat version of you?
Oh yeah, and you tagged my doppelganger.
Yeah, I'll post that. That was hilarious. Like it was amazing. That guy turned around and we said, "Whoa."
I also had the delightful experience of listening to one of our own episodes because I'm flying around all this time. I'm running out of podcasts to listen to, and so I went back and listened to one of our own, and was quite surprised to hear a song which you and I recorded that I thought was sworn to secrecy make an appearance. I didn't quite know what to do with myself, Jeff. Well played.
Was that last week's or 2 weeks ago?
Could have been either one, and I don't get embarrassed very often, but that was a very funny moment for us, and really I felt like it was better served in never being shown to the public. But this is
I
delightful.
am trying to bring the spirit of 2007 back to everyone.
Well, you're doing a great job, and
Thank you.
hope.
If you don't know what we're talking about, go back a few episodes and just listen to the. How would you even describe it? The Belle Biv DeVoe-esque intro music that then has Al rapping?
I was modeled myself after William the Shatner. In his new album Has Been, where he's just sort of a speak talk.
His new album Has Been. Sorry.
Yeah. The man's genius. Even his old stuff is terrible. And so the fact that he's still doing new stuff that's also terrible.
Well, you know that Has Been is like 10 years old though, right? I mean,
it
it's a
came
stretch
out
to
while
call
I was
it
in college.
to call it new, but we'll support the Shat.
El Shatter. Yeah, so it was
So good. Good.
That was what we were going for, and I was looking around the room and speaking while you played on the old keyboard, and it was very entertaining. Best back. We thought we were hilarious. That was our thing. We thought we were really funny.
I had to make sure the audio tapered off before it got to the second verse where you say worse things.
Oh yeah, no. As my humor is prone to do, I always end up in the gutter.
I like that Al's default, if he doesn't know what to say, was basically to say, "I've been with your sister. I'm with your mom." His default in 2007 was to just make jokes about being with every woman in one family.
That was the heyday of The Office, Jeff. That was everybody's go-to. This is what we were all doing. This was our moment in the sun for 12-year-olds everywhere. Our moment came in 2007.
Yeah, pretty much. Those were the days. I was so young then. Oh man.
So you're back from your trip, right? You're home?
Yeah. To be brief, we're all back. We had our good last week. I believe I joined you from Colorado. I'd barely been in Colorado Springs, so the rest of the trip was great. I meandered around quite a bit of the fine state of Colorado. I covered some serious ground.
Did you hike any 14ers?
I didn't hike any 14ers. I mean, we went to we went up Pikes Peak, but that's driving. But
we drove to a summit, if that counts.
But
no, Jeff, it doesn't count.
What I did do is I drove down to Great Sand Dunes National Park, which is quite remote. It's in the San Juan Valley. You're probably, I don't know, 60 miles north of New Mexico at that point, maybe, if that.
Oh, down by Manassas, Colorado.
Sure, you're down there a ways. It was a bit of a drive, but very, very cool because it's quite the quite the anomaly, and it's pretty amazing geologically how these exist.
Use
They're the tallest
form of anomaly. Anomaly.
These are you get sand dunes like in the deserts like Glamis, or you can go to White Sands, New Mexico, which is a little bit different. But these are the tallest dunes in North America, and by tallest I mean their actual visible height, not their elevation, because they would also kill anyone on elevation. Because I was like 9,500 feet up, but that was very fun actually. I saw them.
Wait, do you? I mean, what do you do out there? Do you run down these dunes?
It's pretty fun. They have no trails. It's pretty no holds barred actually. You just show up and they just say you can just walk out to the dunes and do whatever you want. You can even camp on them if you get a permit. You can just go camp on the dunes.
That's what I'd do.
You can be there 24 hours a day if you want. They don't care.
I would never leave that place. I would just be sandy and dry all the time. So what caused the dunes? Did that used to be some rainforest area?
Well, basically there's the river that comes down that would bring with it silt. And because of the way it's tucked into a corner by the mountain peaks, the way the winds would blow would sort of cause the sands to group together. And then, of course, over millennia, you have giant dunes build up. Mm-hmm. And so it was actually fun. Much harder to climb dunes than I thought it would be.
Dude, it is, man.
As it turns out, I looked at it and said, I'll scramble up that thing in like half an hour. It'll be great. Yeah, it took me about an hour and a half of labored climbing. And the elevation didn't help for sure. And I have asthma, so that was fun. But it was beautiful up there. I was determined though. I mean, I it's very easy to say, this is great up here, turn around. But I said, no, I'm going to the top, and I did it.
Started from the bottom. Now we're here.
Yeah, and I made it up there, and I hung out with some Quebecans, which was very fun. And,
now, if anybody would be at the top of a mountain, it's Quebecans.
Yeah. So
I feel like anytime I've been in trouble out in the wilderness, there's been somebody from Canada there to help me.
Well, they're fur trappers by nature.
Sure,
it's just who they are. It's in their blood.
Like I'm not even kidding. When I was in Moab, I was a youth of like 22, 23, and I was riding. And at the time, I was still on platform pedals, and so I didn't have my clips. So I'm doing slick rock, and I had this great big giant mountain bike, and I'm a big guy anyway, and so I had a 25-inch frame.
Oh,
was what I was riding, which is like just enormous. And so I was riding the white giant, as we called her, and I came down. It was one of these things where like you go over the top of a hill and you come shooting down the side, and it sort of curves and banks, and off you go onto like curving up right and climbing the next hill. And so I got going, and I got too high up on this curve and was leaning in trying to make this bank, and caught my pedal, ripped the platform right off. Right? And so like I have this big spill at the bottom of the hill, and I'm down one pedal at mile like 7 out of 14 on the Slick Rock Trail. And so I walk to the top of the hill, and I'm holding my ripped up pedal in one hand and my bike in the other, and I'm at the top, and up there happen to be 3 Canadians who happen to have an extreme excess of medical tape, and we taped my pedal back on, and I was able to pedal out of there. I was like, thank you, Canada. Thank you for being prepared, because I had a water bottle, an inner tube, and no air pump. So like literally there's nothing I could have done.
You weren't prepared either. I also was not prepared. I thought this would be a quick hike. I didn't bring any water. I mean, I was wearing, it's okay to wear regular clothes, but I wasn't wearing like hiking clothes or anything.
I feel like when you're in dunes, you should only wear like white linens from Havana.
Sure. So, because you want me to be like a Bedouin or something?
Yeah, well, that's what's in my mind.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So it was good. Other than that, I also drove all the way up to Cheyenne, Wyoming to check out the Capitol building there. And then You
absolutely had the worst road trip of anybody I've ever met.
I would like...
You went to Milwaukee,
no,
down towards New Mexico, and up to Wyoming. There are no more awful places in America to go visit outside of Buffalo, New York.
When we were offline, you told me how wonderful my trip looked, and you've enjoyed following it. And now that you're in Al, the character mode on our program...
Yeah.
You have to go and be like that.
Don't get me wrong. I've enjoyed the pictures that you've taken, Jeff.
Sure you have.
But you've chosen the most awful places to go.
Well, I never go to Cheyenne, so I figured I'd pop up there. And then I checked out
What
the
did you
temple
find in
construction
Cheyenne?
site.
What was there for you, buddy? What was in
what?
Cheyenne? Hachiam? What'd you find there?
The state capital of Wyoming.
Nothing. You found nothing.
Well, was there anything in Pierre, South Dakota? No, but there's the capital of South Dakota. So we went there.
Did we go to Pierre, South Dakota?
They call it Pierre, actually. And yeah, remember we stayed the night there at the Roadway Inn and tried to hide.
Oh yeah, we were gonna go to North Dakota, and that's what we opted out of.
And the guy the morning later on, the manager was totally cool with Brock having breakfast there. He didn't even care. It was great. So cool.
Yeah.
That was fun. And I also saw the Fort Collins Temple construction, which will be Colorado's second temple. That was fun. And, just did things.
Good.
It was good. So anyway, it's good to be back. We're spending a lot of time on this. I hope you are well. Germany's great. You went to Prague, which I'm very proud of you for doing.
Yeah, Prague was phenomenal. As I was walking around, it was funny. I like 2 years ago when one F Jeff Holmes was on The Bachelor. You remember, yes. And
I've tried to block it out.
They visited Prague, and I sadly recognized a lot of places they'd been, and was texting girlfriends. Like you never feel like less of a man than when you're saying, "Do you recognize this place?" And the women that you watched The Bachelor with were like, "No idea, no clue." And I was like, "It's The Bachelor."
That's what you remember it from. Now I've been to Prague as well. You could have texted me and sent me pictures.
Jeff, you're not on iMessage, so I can't text you until I'm back.
No, I'm an Android believer. There'd be no point being on iMessage.
No,
iMessage is
Prague,
nothing but Google Chat. And
Prague really was amazing. The best parts of that place are like, I mean, that architecture just goes back so far because it didn't. Well, you were telling me this, but like it didn't get hit very hard in World War II.
Nope.
Which is why it's one of the few European cities that's still like very traditional European.
Yeah, Prague and Krakow, both beautiful cities that were spared a lot of the bombing. It's pretty impressive.
So if you've not been to Prague and you love Europe, go to Prague. It's the place to go. And then I went from there to Berlin. We took the train to Berlin. I was going to be in Berlin for the 25-year anniversary of the Berlin Wall coming down.
Right. Yeah.
And so we're on the train out of Prague. They stop us in the German town right on the border coming in from the Czech Republic, and they kicked us all off the train because all of Germany was on a rail strike. I was like, I'm sorry, what? So they dump us all off the train, and we end up hitching a bus in and had all kinds of drama getting into Berlin. But we finally got to Berlin, got into our place, and like 3 hours late, missed everything. Missed the show, missed the balloons being released, all that. But Berlin has been delightful. Had a bunch of buddies come up here. There's 4 of us cruising around. And I got to do more touristy stuff this time than I've ever done. We today, Maddle, our mutual friend, he and I went up to Schönhauser, which is like the Berlin concentration camp.
Uh-huh.
Which was kind of fascinating. I didn't realize they had a concentration camp this close to the capital, but lots of history around that. It's just crazy. We went to the Jewish History Museum last night, and that was crazy, man. Like they have this one display where it's the guy made 10,000 faces, like they're iron faces, like cast iron almost, something of that nature, just big heavy metal faces. It fills this room, and it's this huge cavernous room, and it goes up 4 stories, and it's just empty and hollow. And this art installation, you go in there and you walk around on these faces, and like the metal clinking together just fills this room with this it's so creepy, dude. It's just this eerie like screams of martyrs sort of. It was one of the most moving art installations I've ever participated in. It was really interesting. So. You should have gone there instead of going to Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Your trip sounds so lame. The things that you go and do just make me so sad. Like, I can't believe that you derive joy from these things that you choose to do.
No, Jeff,
I
wasn't in Cheyenne.
I mean, Prague. Oh, old buildings, and then I'm Udgang. That's a word I know.
Yeah, no, I mean, if Cheyenne had any old buildings, that would be super cool.
Your life is so sad.
But unfortunately, there's just a Super 8 and a Motel 6.
Your life is pathetic. Your life is such a joke. It's so sad.
That's fair. Hey, buddy, I'm on your side here.
don't set me off like I went off the other day. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Jeff went on a rampage last week because people were wrong on the internet and he had to fix it. So like as I'm traveling, I get to sort of follow along on some of his dumb tirades that he'd go on. Like I could tell he was so beside himself. How dare somebody be wrong on the internet, and he had to make sure they knew they were wrong. And I was like, oh man, he's in a bad place right now. That Jeff needs a hug.
I always want everyone to be better, and so if
don't you dare hide behind the guys that you just want people to be better. You're like a drill sergeant just looking for somebody to not have screwed on their canteen lid right.
No, I just want us all to be responsible. Social media is scary now because it's more and more. It's just this land of irresponsible nonsense. And if we can do more to engage in genuine, productive
somebody
debate,
is wrong on the internet, honey. I can't come to bed right now.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
I was loving it. Anyway,
so let's talk about other things that were wrong on the internet last week. I'm going to lead off with the biggest news that's happened since we last were with you.
Wait, Glenn Beck is back?
Glenn Beck, I'm sorry to hear, is suffering from some sort of mystery illness.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, no one knows what's going on. Doctors haven't figured it out yet. So, whatever. Any political things aside or whatever, I mean, Brother Beck, we hope you feel better. We hope they figure it out. It's not fun for anybody. Sorry to hear that.
We like a healthy opponent.
He's mellowed out since he left Fox News. Shocking. One would mellow out after leaving Fox News. And I'm sorry if I just upset half of our listeners, but I don't care. Let me explain to you why Fox News is terrible. I will do so on the internet. In an angry comment.
I'll meet you there. Nation, I'll meet you on the internet.
So Mark Paredes, we've actually reported on plenty of stuff he's written before because he writes over for the Jews and Mormons column at the Jewish Journal. And so we've periodically checked in when there's been articles of note. So that's great. No big deal there. But instead, the day after last week's election, when the Dear Democrats lost their seats, he wrote an article called Good Riddance to Harry Reid, the Mormon Senate leader. And in it, he basically makes a case for why Democrats are not worthy of temple recommends, even going as far as to say that, and this is like quoting, that Harry Reid does not take his religion seriously, and then goes on to explain, of course, how it is that Democrats could be okay with getting a temple recommend, primarily because of one of the final interview questions, where if you support, affiliate with, or agree with any group or individual whose teachings or practices are contrary to or oppose those accepted by the church. Standard question, and he believes because of the Democratic Party charter that you can't have one. You are naughty if you're a Democrat. This provoked the ire of the blogosphere, because I believe the Mormon blogosphere is primarily liberal, for one. But in general, I mean, liberal or not, this was a pretty reckless thing to post. I saw people sadly posting things along the lines of, I am glad he is not my bishop. Or, if he were my bishop, I would move to change wards and not have him as a bishop. And it's not... Things like that are unfortunate because I don't feel like that makes us any better from the judging context. But... it doesn't make it easy, I guess, if you have a bishop who publishes things like this. And what if you are a Democrat and you read this and just say, well, thanks, Bishop Paredes. You really made me feel enfranchised in the ward. I appreciate that. It's tough.
Thank you for judging me based on my political views. He later issued a comment on this and said, I apologize for the tone of the article and for suggesting that somehow as a bishop I was in a position to criticize Harry Reid from a religious standpoint. I'm criticizing his politics, and I will not stand down from my criticisms of that. This is actually a fairly relevant conversation piece, though, in the Mormon world, because I think, sadly enough, I think that there are a lot of LDS people who share that frustration or that sort of idea that how could you be a Democrat and a good Mormon? Mainly because the traditional Democratic Party identifies with being pro-abortion, right? Pro-choice.
Sure. And you can read the official charters, which are 2 years old now, but both parties have sort of an official manifesto from 2012, all from the presidential election then. And you could say, yeah, they support Roe v. Wade. They support gay marriage.
Right. And when there's stuff where they'll look at that and say, I could never affiliate with that. No, and what people need to remember is that, the church's stance is that we support the best candidate, right? It's the best candidate that's going to do, that's going to represent the majority of what we are for. I know quite a few LDS people that are happily liberal, especially from the form of how they feel government should act and interact with its people, and they don't necessarily agree with every tenet. Believe it or not, you don't have to agree with everything to be a majority in one party or the other. Now, even if I were to vote Republican, I would expect that same thing, because there are some wacky beliefs in that Republican dialogue that I would hope any intelligent, conscientious human being would be able to look at and say, no. I'm not a Mike Huckabee Republican. I'm like a rational, Republican. even keel, real logical thinking Republican.
Well, and it's true, Al. That's a great point, because both parties, I think the key is that we're voting for people, and the political party system in America has a lot of problems. But a party might have an official charter, but it's not to assume that either party is full of members who adhere to every single belief in that charter, because that's just not how we are as humans. Everyone has we're nuanced. We all have various beliefs.
And if you affiliate with the Democratic Party, there's a part of you that's like, well, I'm swallowing the whole here by saying that yes, this is my affiliation. But as your friends and community around you, they shouldn't necessarily look at you and say, oh, well, everything they stand for, he stands for. I think that there's a little bit of room there for you to be a person on top of that.
Here's a great example. I don't know if this is in the official charter. It's probably not, because it's been a bigger deal since the election 2 years ago. But the Republican Party historically, in the past few years, has not been as malleable, I guess you could say, with immigration reform. They want it. They believe in safe. All of us want good immigration and controlled immigration, but they don't agree with a lot of the things put forth by the Democrats. It's funny, because a lot of them wouldn't even agree with things that George Bush actually proposed when he was in office. The point is, though, a lot of that would run in contrast to the church's even official positions. I mean, the church has openly said that President Obama's proposals for immigration reform are in line with the church's belief system. So it goes all ways, folks, and there are many examples across both parts of the aisle. And a good thing to mention is, we didn't talk about it on the show, but many of you probably had a letter read from the pulpit last month before the election, the usual encouraging you to vote letter from the first presidency.
Yeah.
But I like that it says, principles compatible with the gospel may be found in various political parties and candidates. It's amazing that was written before Mark Paredes actually even wrote his piece. He was a bishop who had to read this from the pulpit himself. And I guess failed to overlook that penultimate paragraph. I don't know. But what's also interesting in that, though, is I feel like even that letter was a little bit different from the usual one. Usually it just says, vote with how you like. This one encouraged us more to seek out leaders who do uphold principles that we believe in. Slight shift from what they usually talk about when they encourage us to vote.
Well, there's another letter. So bishops, I feel like anymore bishops sort of have a higher responsibility. Jeff, we were talking about some of the former bishops we've had that might have some kooky ideas and stuff, and it just makes you wince when you see them get excited on Facebook when they find out people are wrong. If you were a bishop and I was in your fold, I would be like, oh my gosh.
Well, I can tell you a true story of this. I had a bishop once, great man, wonderful man, but a more conservative type, and he would post because he's sort of working on his own brand and radio and this and that, but he would post his stuff on his personal Facebook page. And like any bishop in a singles ward, he would often, befriend all of us on Facebook who are in his ward, just to, he wants to be with his flock and see what's going on. And I think that's fine. But it got very offensive to a ward that was probably almost half Democrat. And And so, but it got to the point where some members actually emailed him and said, look, you can't go posting stuff like this on your personal Facebook page because it offends us and alienates us, because this is your personal Facebook page. And wisely, they encouraged him to create a brand page for himself and direct. But that was good counsel for him, and say, you know what, it's fine. Keep your personal stuff as a personal page about whatever you want. But if you want to push your Tea Party stuff, then do that on a brand page. And that's, I think, a good. Mark Paredes should have done the same thing. And the most frustrating thing in this is that he sort of speaks with the authority of a bishop. He's never saying he speaks for the church, but he makes a point saying as a bishop, as if his role as a judge in Israel has bearing, and he is in a position to judge, Harry Reid's temple worthiness, for example. And he is not. And the other thing, lastly, before I think I know what you want to shift to, Al, that question about do you affiliate with groups, that was pretty much originally devised to make sure we were not associating with polygamists. Like, that's why it exists. It can mean whatever we want it to mean.
Are you sure on that?
Well, not 100% sure on every aspect of it.
Well, as long as you're 30% or more.
Or 15 or so.
Fact.
No, but that's why things like that existed, because they want to make sure that we are not part of those radical fringe LDS groups. That would be a major issue for us. Now, of course, you can take that to a lot of other things today, and that's also fair game, I think. If you're saying that you are... You believe in killing abortion clinic doctors. Well, that might be a problem, So,
when that interview question comes up, I hope you take pause and say, yes, I do.
Anyway, but Al, I think you were leading into this other email from this group.
Well, no. I don't feel like this other email even deserves. There's another bishop or somebody of that nature.
Well, it's not even a bishop. This was just from a ward Google group.
They used a ward list to sort of criticize Tim Cook and Apple after Tim Cook sort of did that expose speaking about how he was homosexual and proud of it and proud to be leading a company as that. He felt like he was doing a lot of good. Somebody said, well, let's sell our Apple stock now. And I mean, stuff like that where word lists are used for your personal political sort of mandates. I think it's just... It just needs to be in the past. People need to be smarter about what they say on the internet, because, I mean, a lot of, I talk to kids a lot about this, where I'm like, you don't realize everything you say right now is still around when you're trying to run for political office in 20 years. And so, the best thing you can learn to do with social media is just shut your mouth.
That wouldn't be any fun, though, Al. What's fun on social media is to fix it.
Older people have the same problem, because they're getting into the internet for the first time ever as well. So they have... I mean, there's a lot of this I'm going to say it how it is. I'm going to give you the tough talk. Right. I'm like, dude, no, just quiet down and let some people be wrong, and we'll win the war, but let's not try and win every battle, shall we?
I do think one of the great lessons you can learn, especially even in church leadership or any kind of leadership, there's a lot of power in what you don't say, and just being able to sit back and let a conversation happen, observe it, chime in where necessary. I mean, I've been instructed in my current calling. That it is my duty, if false doctrine is ever preached in my quorum or anything like that, that it is part of my responsibility and my presidency's responsibility to stand up to correct that, on the spot. That's our job. But,
sure,
but that's not really ever.
You extend that to mean if false doctrine is perpetuated on the internet.
Who knows, right? Well, obviously, I do not have any authority or keys over the internet, sadly, very sadly.
Dude, if anybody deserved keys for presiding over the internet, it would be you.
No. It's Quentin L. Cook. He holds the keys.
The blogosphere, man.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's some other cool stuff going on. Let's see. We've talked about this before. It's made the news a number of times, but Mormon missionaries in Italy are doing more chalk drawings. They're just, it's essentially a street display. They're trying to be creative, trying to get people in.
It appears they are defacing the land.
As I've been walking around, anytime I get to walk around on a cold, blustery day in a European city, my mind immediately goes back to my mission, because that's what I remember of my days in Ukraine. And so I'm walking around today, and it's just sort of like a gloomy, almost rainy day, and people on the street. And I was like, man, this takes me back so hard. But what's interesting about it is, as I was reminiscing, I was just like, how stupid for us to think that we were just going to walk around on the street and haphazardly meet people. Like, what a terrible way to go about finding. Like, in retrospect, I'm just like, this is awful. There's like 4 people out here. I mean, I'm happy to go chat with them, but like, what a dummy I was. And so I love sort of the push on missionaries now to try and be a little more creative and say, how dumb do you think you need to be to think that you're going to find that person by wandering up and down the streets of a neighborhood? I mean, like, that is not going to do the work for you. And so coming up with some nifty new ideas. Street chalk may not be the be-all, end-all, but it's
No.
at least it's something.
No, it is something. I mean, we did chalk drawings on my mission, or we had displays, because one thing we had that was famous in the mission, one apartment had a giant Book of Mormon type box that a missionary could wear.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. And that was famous in the mission, because if you ever wanted to try to do those big make a splash days, one would put the box on over the suit and stand there and be like, "What's up?"
Did it work? Would people stop?
Yeah, people talk to you. The bottom line is, when you're walking on the streets or riding your bike or whatever, sure, you'll have opportunities to just talk to people at random, and that's hopefully good things come of it. But if instead you can make the people come to you, you have already overcome one of the main hurdles of sales, not to reduce it to sales, but come on, let's be honest, we're pitching people here, and that you're getting people to come to you and you're not soliciting. And so that's, if you can find ways to do that and get people to engage in the conversation willingly on their own accord, you are already that much closer and that much further along than you would be if you're trying to convince them just to talk to you in the first place.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. What terrible ideas we had as 20-year-olds.
I know, but they're having better ones as 18-year-olds. They know. They just know.
They get it. Hey, also, I got
ahead.
one more I want to jump to. You hear about the BYU student that got busted for having a meth lab?
Yeah, I heard all about it. I understand that he had cancer and wanted to leave money to his family.
He got a trailer and started cooking meth in there, and he was doing it for Skylar and Walt Jr. who loved
this one's the
breakfast
student.
food.
I believe he must have been doing it with one of BYU's chemistry professors. He's the young one.
He was the Jesse Pinkman. Is that what you're suggesting?
That's what I'm suggesting. But tell me more.
So no, there's a BYU student who got busted for having a meth lab. He says he was cooking soap, which if I had a meth lab in my dorm room, I would also say I was cooking soap. I feel like that's a great way of putting it. Also, I love, I love the idea that he's got like housemates and stuff that he's just crafting away out on the side at the Riviera in Provo. Just doing his work. So
the best quote here is, because now there's a question. I believe the student in question says that he was making a soap, and but the Provo police sergeant says what gives this away that it was a meth lab is the fact that it's a meth lab, which sums it up beautifully. So yeah, the 21-year-old Bryce Cazier, who's a returned missionary, which is what his roommate said. All his roommate said was he's a returned missionary. He'd never do anything wrong.
Let this be a lesson to you women who date.
They even said in KSL, this isn't Breaking Bad on the run. This is a kid that had legitimate hobbies that his roommates were aware of, that didn't have enough concern through the time he was there to do anything about it. Not even enough concern after there was a fire in his room. Yeah, if I learned anything from Breaking Bad, you can't make meth in a bedroom. You got to have, that's dangerous.
Yeah, you gotta start. I mean, you take over the whole house while it's under the report of being fumigated. That's the key.
He even has an I'm a Mormon page. Hey, this could be like that drug dealer thing we saw. This could be
this story is great.
This could be. Remember, we saw that thing all about, was it up in Ogden, like the drug trade in Utah, like active Mormon people who sell drugs and even pay tithing on it and stuff like that. So weird. Steve Young. You might remember the fellow named Steve Young, a famous Mormon, once played a game called football. And all in all, he's supposed to...
That's with not the round one, that's the...
It is called, American football. Not to be confused with Canadian football, which has cooler rules. But Steve Young apparently turned down a cameo role that Brett Favre later took on in the classic 90s comedy, There's Something About Mary. Now, many of you might remember this movie. If so, I'm not here to tell you whether you should have fond memories of it or or negative memories.
It was rated R, Jeff. We weren't allowed to watch it, but it did come on TV later, and the Frankenbeans moment was hilarious. So I'm just gonna put that right there.
It's a Farrelly Brothers film, and they revel in scatological humor, which is a term which I know we've talked about before. But they love that stuff, which incidentally, Dumb and Dumber 2 comes out this week. So if you want to go see their sequel to Dumb and Dumber, go for that too.
I do.
So anyway, the point is that it was, I believe, if I remember, Brett Favre just had a slight cameo at I don't know. It was just some random cameo in the movie. I think they were all falling in love with Mary. And Steve Young was approached to do it because he was a big deal in the late 90s. But he said
no.
Yeah.
He said no because he felt like it would have set a bad example for other Mormons.
Which is a totally fair and legitimate point, I think. I don't know. I feel like that. If you're okay watching that movie, Mormon or not, then you're probably not going to be offended by Steve Young being in the movie. But so, I think the people
he thought the people would go and see it because he was in it. He didn't want his fans, his good, his young men's group that he leads to go and see this movie because. And then he was like, and later, when I saw it, I was pretty glad I didn't do it.
Yeah, I think I would be too. I've seen There's Something About Mary uncut, and I probably easiest as a church leader to not be associated with it, I think.
Hey, speaking of movies, did you see Interstellar?
Not yet, so don't spoil anything.
For real, Jeff? What have you been doing? You actually like movies.
We were traveling, and now I've been trying to convince my wife to go because I want to see it on IMAX. I really want to see it.
Well, I went and saw it in Prague with Czech subtitles, and it was delightful. And I'd really like to discuss that movie with you.
You're gonna have to wait. Give me the weekend. Maybe I can make it happen.
All right. Spoiler alert. They go to space.
It's mostly because I heard he filmed half of it in IMAX. So if I can go downtown to the mall, go to the Air and Space Museum, and watch it there. Which they're playing it. I would like to see it there.
Yeah, I saw that, Jeff. I mean, but do that. Don't think about do it tonight.
I might. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Tonight I can't. Tonight I will be recording some Sunday School Bonanza episodes.
Oh, that's fair.
So I can't do it.
That's totally fair.
Yeah. Jeremy Guthrie. Al, I'm very sorry about the Royals. We didn't even talk about it last week.
Oh my gosh.
But the
Jeremy
Royals
Guthrie's
lost.
great though.
Is he though? If he had been great, the Royals might have actually won the Game 7.
Okay, that's both fair and accurate. I wish that he was greater, but he is a very nice man.
He is not greater than Madison Bumgarner. That's what we've learned.
No one is better than Madison Bumgarner.
Apparently not.
And that frustrates me because I would love to hate him, but the guy, I mean, he was ice water. Just amazing.
Yeah, you can't fault the guy at all. But Jeremy Guthrie is now doing the devotional tours, and that's great for him. So
he did one in Platte City, Missouri, which is right by Kansas City.
I know. You could have gone if you would have been in town.
Well, I had a bunch of people. I had some friends and acquaintances back there that drove up and went to it. I had no idea that it was in a Mormon chapel, and attended it and sent me pictures. And I was like, "You said your first Mormon experience?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, that was pretty nice."
I like that the devotional was dubbed "An Evening with Jeremy Guthrie."
That's what else would you have dubbed it?
I don't really know. That's why I'm like, that is both descriptive and to the point. So
you've treated us well on all fronts.
So Brother Guthrie just talked about, just like these typical things, just talks all about all his life and his career and maybe the fact that he's played for like a gazillion teams, and good for him. All I can say to this. And he talks about being a missionary, which is great, which makes me think of our boy Jabari. And all I can think about is just, Jabari, if you would have missioned, you too could do the touring circuit.
He still can. He can hit pause. How long is his contract?
But now, because of this, they're never going to want him on the CES circuit. They like RMs. They're not going to want him to. Of course, Steve Young didn't go on a mission, so fair is fair. But
Thurl Bailey, he's all over that circuit.
Didn't Thurl Bailey convert?
He did.
Good for him.
Didn't we all convert, Jeff?
Some of us are still converting.
So also in the news, we have, let's see, some quick mentions. Sherry Dew is going to speak on as Jeff Benson next week.
What does that mean?
She's just giving a talk on ETB.
Is this like a primer for next year's lessons?
Brooke White from the American Idol has something on the Mormon channel. She had some music video thing she's singing, Don't Care.
I care.
There's a great profile on the Saints in Lebanon. Apparently, there are Mormons in Lebanon. Did you know that, Jeff? I knew that.
Okay, when talking about the country, it's called Lebanon. Okay,
Lebanon.
Now,
I'm from
Lebanon is a
Missouri.
very Midwestern thing.
Don't you dare play this Al is not right on the internet game with me, Jeff.
No,
I know
I've
your
got one for you right now.
moves.
Al, I believe there's a town in Missouri, and you can tell me what it's named.
Lebanon, Missouri?
No. Well, that's probably called Lebanon, Missouri. But what's the capital of Spain?
Of Spain is Madrid.
And isn't there a new version of that in Missouri? And what's it called?
Jefferson City.
No.
Missoula.
Haven't you ever heard of New Madrid, Missouri?
No, I've never heard of that in my life.
That's a town, and they call it Madrid.
What's in that town? Probably nothing.
Prostitutes. I don't know. But
Ergo, I would never have heard of it.
Anyway, but it is a thing on the Saints in Lebanon, who are few.
Vis-a-vis Paris, Missouri.
Is it called Paris?
Vis-a-vis Nevada, Missouri.
Well, it's like how Branson's called Branson, Missouri, but in Ireland it's called Branson.
What? What does that mean? They're both Branson. You said
I'm gonna
twice.
let you stew on that one for a while. What I've just done is I've changed your world. I've turned it upside down.
You've done nothing to me. Okay. But on top of all that, so wait, did you want to say anything about Lebanon?
I just think it's great we have a profile of that because there's not a lot of church activity in Lebanon, but it's there. If anyone wants a little history on Lebanon had a largely Christian minority, big Christian minority for years, and they fled in the past few decades. So if you meet a lot of Lebanese people stateside, not all of them, but chances are many of them descend from Lebanese Christians. But because of the political conflicts, it's not that way. Lebanon was actually created as France and the UK divvied up the Middle East and drew, stupid borders that are the cause of sectarian conflict today. They made Lebanon separate from Syria primarily to make a Christian protectorate separate from Syria, which would be Druze and Muslim. So there you go. So there's your history, and that's why today there are members in Lebanon who I'm assuming practice freely, but the church isn't huge.
And
also,
still
Lebanon's
a Christian
government-
minority. Still.
Yeah, Lebanon's government is also fascinating because I believe it has a rotating sort of president, or like the president has to be a Christian and the prime minister has to be a Muslim, and like the speaker of something has to be a Druze, and it's very interesting. Anyway, continue, Al.
No, so those are my mentions, and then I was going to go the newsroom, the Old Mormon newsroom, responded this week to all of the hubbub on the polygamy stuff. So like the New York Times picked up the story on the polygamy articles.
Weeks later.
The thing that everybody's focusing on is, well, they're sort of positioning it as the Mormon Church is admitting that its founder, Joseph Smith, had multiple wives and had a young wife even, and all this kind of stuff. So they're very excited about that. And the Mormon Church, their response is like, hey, whoa, everybody, before we get too excited about this has always been there. It's always been available. It's been available.
Sort of.
It's been available through numerous sources, and we're just. I mean, the church is writing an essay, like sort of a how we understand it synopsis of all this stuff. But even in church approved manuals and things, there's been plenty of dialogue around polygamy, around Joseph Smith and polygamy. But it's not there in like the traditional Sunday school manuals and things of that nature. Right?
No, definitely not.
So I mean, it's a step in making it a little bit more public, but it's always been there. This isn't something that's new per se. And I mean, even within our circles, Jeff, you were talking to me earlier. I mean, there's people that are like, well, I always just kind of ignored any talk about this rather than go and study it. And now I'm having to sort of take a look at it because the church has said it. I think that's our own dang fault that we haven't bothered to go and. I mean, it's very easy to get a surface level view of our church and be very happy and content with it and feel no need to dive any deeper. The danger in that is that there's plenty good, both good and bad, as we dive deeper. In my opinion, the good far outweighs the bad. And like it's worth investigating and getting right into the throes of church history. plenty of stuff there. Like, we should be looking at that. And so
We should.
people that aren't, that are kind of surprised by this, I think they're missing big opportunities for the positive as well by keeping their head in the sand.
Yeah, and that's the point of this little press release. And they also list all of the articles that have been written thus far, which is kind of nice. We're actually coming up next week on the first anniversary. The Are Mormons Christian article was the first one to go up in this series of essays. But I want to go back to something you said, though, Al. I don't know that it's always been there. I believe it's always been there as a fact, but I'm trying to think of whether actual stuff on LDS.org, if you could find official church publications for mainstream consumption.
No,
that actually mention these things. Like, that's why they're writing these now and why it's such a big deal, because you have an essay published on LDS.org that's very open about Joseph Smith's polygamy.
Well, the essay is open. It's easy to consume. Where I'm thinking of is like you would be piecing stories together out of history of the church, right?
Sure. But unfortunately, most members of the church just don't read history of the church. They're not all reading.
Do you know it's available in everybody's library? Every congregation, I believe, has a copy of that.
They should have a copy of it. It's true, it's there. So you're right in that sense that it's there, but it's definitely not been packaged for mainstream.
No, absolutely. But the fact that the New York Times is like, whoa. I mean, it's just the fact that the church has chosen to shine a light on it and say, hey, we're not pretending to hide from any of this. Like, this is a real thing, and this is here,
right?
And here's how we're digesting it. And so, like, you have these major news outlets that are like, well,
they're ready. Yeah, I don't fault anyone for not being deeply aware of this stuff before. Because why would you? Like, especially, I mean, it's different for us. We're just being in podcasting alone. We're naturally a little deeper in than I think other people might be. But there are plenty of people who you're humming along, just doing your stuff. You read the church manuals, you read your scriptures, and if that is the extent of the stuff you do, which is great, I completely understand why this would also be stuff you're unaware of. Because up to this point, if you had lived and breathed off of just church curricula and the random Happy Deseret book purchase or whatever, it makes sense you wouldn't always know about these things. And so it's good that they're opening up about it, I think.
Well, I definitely think it's good too. I'm just
yeah, and like you said, it has been interesting though that the news has up and now decided to pick up on it. Many people have been wondering that. Jana Reese actually wrote a post, pretty much just asking, this happened like 3 weeks ago. Why does the New York Times care now? One thing did say the New York Times wanted to publish on this, but was waiting till after the election so that it did not get buried, so they could let it fly. So who knows? But yeah, I love that everyone's acting now like, oh, well, everyone's talking about Joseph Smith's 40 wives. We've talked about this the past 2 episodes, actually. So
if they would have been listening to Twin.
Yeah, they would already know. Let's see. Some quick mentions here. I love this one. Up in Cardston, Alberta, a town that we love, Al, for its temple and its Dairy Queen.
Both of those things were very good to us.
Well, they sell poutine at the Dairy Queens in Canada. It's wonderful. But so a local man gets some jail time because he and his friends actually used one of our church buildings, as they describe it, his own little bar room. So this guy was basically turning it into a place of revelry, just using the church building, just kind of breaking in and serving drinks and making it a party town. And so he's doing some small jail time for this now. I think that man's got some chutzpah.
Wait, so was he a member of the church?
Is that even relevant to the discussion?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see here. I actually don't remember if there is any mention of him being a member of the church. Doesn't say anything about it. Just says that he broke some cabinets too.
So just some random dude is breaking into the church and is like, listen, we got a kitchen with a phenomenal serving area. Everybody come in here. I'm going to make some drinks.
Exactly. And then they went there and they said, oh, guys, but we're not allowed to actually cook food here.
It's only a warming area.
So that happened, which is that happened.
That is awesome. Let's see some other quick exciting things. The church history site on the Susquehanna River is almost finished. So we talked about this actually years ago.
Mm-hmm. When they
I love that we've spoken about things for years, but we spoke about this a while ago, and they the church was planning on renovating this whole thing, and they've been on it for a while. And so this is as of when they bought the land in 2011, and have been working on it for quite a while. And then they're where are they at? The Oakland Township. The old
So I believe this is out by Harmony, Pennsylvania. Then I'm assuming. So what are they restoring there, though, Al? What's going on?
Well, they're building they're building sort of a tribute. And I haven't seen this stuff. I haven't seen their mock-ups and stuff, but from the way they describe it in the article, it sounds very similar to what they did in Sheridan, Vermont?
Sharon, Vermont. Yeah.
Where Joseph Smith was born. They have just sort of a welcome center, the memorial, and then some walking grounds. And so that's we have a little bit more that happened here in the Susquehanna River. Obviously, the Aaronic priesthood was restored there. John the Baptist restored the baptism ordinance there. Well, let's see. So this has actually always been interesting to me. So John the Baptist restores the Aaronic priesthood. And then and why wouldn't John the Baptist hook a brother up and actually do some baptizing? Why isn't that a thing? Why wasn't Oliver and Joseph together in there baptizing away? And how are we okay with just the one that's like, no authority, let me baptize you, and now you are good and you can baptize me? Why did that work?
No. Doesn't he give them both the authority and then they baptize each other?
Well, you can't have the authority without being baptized, Jeff.
See, I've wondered that myself because I've said, well, but does it say that anywhere? I mean, we were restoring the church.
Can you have the priesthood authority without having a baptismal covenant?
Well, today, no. But the one thing to remember is baptism is an important ordinance, and we tie it with membership in the church. But confirmation is what makes us an actual church member. I mean, nowadays and of course, you can't get confirmed the Holy Ghost until you've been baptized. But I'm with you on that one. Even as a kid, I was always kind of like, I don't get it though. Like they weren't baptized yet, so how? I believe in this instance, they simply received the priesthood because there was no church at that point. That's the other thing to remember. There were no roles of the church. There was no sustaining. There was no gift of the Holy Ghost or anything. They were simply conferred upon them the priesthood. And thus being priests at the time, they were able to officiate.
Well, because we see a similar scenario play out in, in Mosiah 18, when the waters of Mormon with Alma, right? Where he goes in there and, who's the dude in there? Helam or somebody? But they go in and they just baptize each other and they're like, all right, high five, we did it. Now we're ready. Now we got it. It's like, all right,
that one's even better because I believe
the effort here, guys, but can we be real for a minute?
I love the Book of Mormon example because I believe they dunk each other mutually. It's not like they even take turns, right? Don't they? He says they both go down into the water.
Yeah, it's as though they were together on a high dive platform, and then jumping in the air, they clasped hands together and kicking their legs all the way down, and then splashed to the bottom where they promised each other they would open their eyes and then jump back up to the surface. Just like Scout Camp 1994.
Al, I think I've envisioned now a new Olympic sport.
It's the jumping high five.
Olympic baptism.
Well, this will also be good for the Oakland Township area, which is pretty much nothing. So now they have Mormondom.
Yeah, and they're going to build a replica of Joseph and Emma's house because we'll have Book of Mormon translation took place there too. So that's kind of cool. Well, that's going to go down. Quick random stuff. I'm going to steal this one from you, Al. They got a third stake in Pittsburgh. Good for them. Pittsburgh has been an anomaly. For a city of its size, it has not ever had huge church representation respective to its population. So now it will actually have a third stake. So good for you, Pittsburgh. Vicksburg and Pittsburgh.
Which reminds me, how you sleeping? Let's see. There was millions of vets added to Family Search. So a bunch of military people got their stuff in there. Good for them. Go search.
And lastly,
people.
everyone. Lastly, the Mormon Rodeo. A wonderful profile in the Deseret News.
Jeff, I believe that's pronounced rodeo.
On rodeo riders and how they find strength in their faith for their thing. It's a fun little profile of people who...
When I stab that electric shocker into my bull's behind,
yep,
I do it with the Holy Spirit.
I would love for them to do LDS bullfighters. That would be a great profile after this one.
I've always been mixed on rodeos. I
When
watched
I
a
stabbed the
thing
bull.
on Dateline as a kid that talked about the mistreatment of animals in rodeos. And I was always sort of against. I know it's not every rodeo, and I know that's not the thing. So before all of BYU Idaho gets all up in a hissy here, I'm just saying, there's a part of me that's more of an animal lover than a rodeo allows. I wouldn't want them in my home by any stretch. No, they belong outdoors. But
you belong to the city. Dun, dun.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
You're doing
dude, I took my children to a rodeo when they were small. This is the first comment. And they were appalled at the cruelty to animals. They have children of their own now and are appalled still. And then the next comment, I assume you're a vegetarian.
No, dude, you want to take him to a bullfight. Rodeos, they don't kill him in the end. Take him to a bullfight. We were allowed to go to a bullfight on my mission. And
once we get a good matador that's like, I draw on my testimony of the Savior every time.
Exactly. Every time I slide the sword right down through his spine to take him out at the end. It's very sad, and we had to wear our proselyting clothes. I felt so awkward sitting there in a bull ring watching us kill animals with my tats. Like, hi guys, Mormons.
What's the book that talks about that? Isn't that a Hemingway novel or something? I remember reading something.
Well, there's a lot of Hemingway on Spain because he fought in the Spanish Civil War. Also, a lot of Hemingway with World War I. If you want to read about Hemingway on the Austrian-Italian border.
I think the one I'm thinking of is the one where he was like injured in the war and could no longer. Oh, never mind. We'll talk about this later. Anyway, Jeff, this has been delightful.
Also, George Orwell's Homage to Catalonia, wonderful book. Everyone should read that too.
So next week I will be home in either Salt Lake or Missouri. I'm not sure where.
Good for you. Good.
And we'll have real recording equipment. It'll be delightful. Thank you for sticking with us through this very echoey, noisy episode. And I'll be stoked to not be doing this at like late at night while Jeff is early in the morning. We'll be in the same continent again.
Al, it's 6 p.m. It's 6 p.m. there.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it's 6 p.m. Hey, it's dark outside, all right? So chill out. Okay. What time is it, folks? 10?
It's 12.
Math is hard.
Folks, please find us at thisweekinmormons.com and send us an email at contact@thisweekinmormons.com. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah, that'd be super cool. Super cool of you to do, people.
Also, leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. That would be great. Magnanimous even. And join us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Pinterest. It's everywhere.
All right.
It's happening.
I like it.
All right. Enjoy Berlin, my friend. Appreciate you taking the time, Al. Nice to have you.
See you, young brother.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening, folks. Hope you have a great week. We'll talk to you again next week on another episode of This Week in Mormons.